Greetings, my friends. I want to thank you all for subscribing. I want to thank all of my channel members for supporting me in this endeavor to save pop culture. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. My friends, as we start the new year, it has never been clearer to me just how badly Disney has mismanaged not only its intellectual property, but its own relationship to its audience. Last year, a poll showed that Disney had roughly a 35% approval rating with the American public. Can you imagine that? A company that used to be a beloved American institution, offering occasionally brilliant but consistently wholesome family entertainment, is now disapproved of by the majority of its own customer base. How far the mighty have fallen, people, delivering substandard entertainment overburdened with political messaging, gay indoctrination targeting young kids, and active hostility towards fans of Marvel and Star Wars who fall outside the protected identity groups approved of by the woke crowd. Disney has severely damaged itself as 2023 begins. People inside the company know it if they won't acknowledge it, and tales of dysfunction have begun to leak out from behind the magic curtain. Case in point, the Book of Boba Fett. The level of mismanagement, malice, and sheer incompetence on this production damn near blew my head clean off when it leaked out, sending my blood pressure into the stratosphere as I watched this unfocused, meandering garbage swirl around aimlessly like the tattered remains of a losing lottery ticket swirling down a toilet. What happened behind the scenes on Book of Boba Fett, and why is Temuera Morrison publicly denouncing the show and calling for a second season to redeem the character? What was the show intended to be before Kennedy and Robert Rodriguez screwed it up beyond all hope of repair? I have the inside scoop on what allegedly happened behind the scenes and why Morrison is so upset, and let me tell you, it's a very interesting example of the level of incompetence and stupidity under Kennedy at Lucasfilm.
That poor guy. For those who don't know, Morrison played Boba Fett in the Star Wars prequels and also in various Disney Plus series. From what you've told me, Doomcock, it seems that he's a fan of the Star Wars source material, just like Henry Cavill was a fan of The Witcher and Superman. And so having Book of Boba Fett suck so hard, he hit him kinda hard.
Yeah, from what I've heard from my Hollywood spies, Morrison has been extremely upset by how badly Book of Boba Fett went, even to the point where he is actively campaigning to do a remake of the series in order to get it right. Now, I'm not saying that he'll succeed. Though he's clearly in the right, his heart is in the right place, and his version of the show would be infinitely better than what Lucasfilm crapped out on Disney Plus. I think it's highly unlikely Disney will even listen to him, much to their own detriment. But even so, I wanted to get this information out to you all because it illustrates yet another aspect of just how disorganized, incompetent, and downright petty Lucasfilm is when it comes to its mismanagement of its IPs. At this point, I want to state that what I'm about to tell you is information provided by a source claiming knowledge of the situation at Lucasfilm vis-a-vis Book of Boba Fett. But since I cannot personally verify any of this information, I am presenting it as unverified rumor, and I ask you to please take it with a grain of salt.
Salt away, Doomcock. I myself was horrified by how slipshod and slapdash Book of Boba Fett was. I suspect, as I watched it, a chill ran down my spine. However, until I locate my spine, I cannot confirm it. So tell us, where did you get this information?
My Hollywood spies met with a source they confirmed was definitely in a position to know what was going on behind the scenes. This was, to put it mildly, a very, very good source. And this source had a story to tell about how different Book of Boba Fett originally was in the early stages of production and how it mutated over time. This source also confirmed that the scrapbooking process I previously reported on has indeed taken over at Disney.
By scrapbooking, you mean shooting various different versions of scenes, like a branching video game, so that the final story is a mix-and-match choose-your-own-adventure assembled from scraps in the editing room?
Precisely that, Harvey Cthulhu. That's no way to tell a story. And this source makes it clear as to why. This source started out the interview with, quote, "The show you gentlemen watched was not the show you should have seen. There was so much that was left on the cutting room floor," unquote. Apparently, Temuera Morrison agreed with this source, and reportedly when Morrison saw the final version of the show, he was taken aback and decidedly upset. According to this source, Morrison made his feelings known quite clearly, and the fact that he was very unhappy with what he had just witnessed. He reportedly said to Robert Rodriguez, "This is not going to go over well in any meaningful way. You clearly don't understand Star Wars fans." This source claims that Morrison's concerns were merely brushed aside, and the main response Morrison received from Mr. Rodriguez was, "It will be fine." The source continued, quote, "Sadly, as we have seen, we all know the outcome of his vision. It was a travesty, to put it mildly," unquote.
A travesty is putting it mildly. It was a disjointed mess, a crap-fest calamity. It was incoherent, boring, and utterly pointless, and it betrayed the character of Boba Fett, turning him into some kind of bland milquetoast Disney-fied version. Exactly the kind of guy the real Boba Fett would kill just for laughs.
I think from what I'm hearing here that Morrison would absolutely agree with you, O Skull of Calderon. At this point, my Hollywood spies asked the source, quote, "If you don't mind, and if you're able, would you explain the difference between what we saw and what you thought the show would be," unquote. The source revealed that Morrison, for one, wasn't happy with how much Rodriguez wanted Boba Fett to speak. Morrison felt that Fett should be seen and not heard. It would make what little he said more impactful. I agree with his assessment. One of the reasons why Fett was so popular in Empire Strikes Back, despite having very little screen time, is his air of mystery. He spoke little, a sinister presence at the edge of the frame, a kind of analog to the man with no name in the spaghetti westerns of the 60s. Listening to Fett blather on all the time, seeing him asleep in his back-to-tank in his underwear all the time, really wasn't conducive to fostering any kind of mystique. The level of failure here cannot be overstated. But now, let's hear what this source had to say about how the plot of Book of Boba Fett mutated over time. The source said, quote, "Let's start with the Sand People. Boba Fett was to be a prisoner, but if you recall, the young boy that basically takes him for himself, he was supposed to have a mother that you see a few times in the background. She was supposed to nurse Fett back to health, and that was why the boy took interest in Fett. It was your typical nurse and patient falling in love, and the basic premise was her mate was killed by the gun train that you see in the story, and she was the one that teaches Fett to understand the Sand People. Fett makes a plan to win his freedom by stopping this train while he is healing. And while making this plan, Fett and the boy bond, and the mother slowly comes to respect Fett and love him. He becomes a member of the tribe, and then the tribe, of course, would be killed. Fett would burn the bodies, bury the mother and the boy last, and this would be how he is driven to go after the Syndicate. The fact all this was removed and more made Fett's decision very confusing," unquote. Indeed, reportedly at first, Morrison didn't like this idea, but knowing the whole script, he started liking the fact that their growing love would be what changed Fett and softened him. As it was, Boba Fett was pre-softened in this Frankenstein patchwork of a series. He seemed to emerge from the Sarlacc pit a real sweetheart for no reason at all, and he remained a real wussy boy throughout the entire series. Morrison was also reportedly unhappy about the helmet situation. He hated taking off the helmet as much as the script forced him to. The source claims, as Morrison saw it, the fact you don't know who or what is underneath that helmet is partially what makes the Mandalorian so special, intimidating, and so on. At this point, my spies asked this source, why did Jon Favreau walk off the project? I have previously reported that Kennedy's passive-aggressive interference and Rodriguez's cooperation with Kennedy in regard to the idiotic Vespas was the straw that broke Favreau's back on the project. Here's what our source recalls regarding the matter, quote, "When the prop for the first hover bike arrived, Favreau walked into Rodriguez's trailer for about an hour, maybe 2. And after that, Favreau left until he was called back towards the end, unquote. This is consistent with my earlier reporting of a rumor that Favreau walked because he hated the Vespas and said, no way we're putting those in the show. Rodriguez, disappointed about this decision, went to Kathleen Kennedy, who saw in this another opportunity to fuck with Jon Favreau, so she endorsed the bikes, knowing that he hated them, and in disgust, Favreau left the project to go focus on Ahsoka. Only toward the end, when it became clear to Disney management just how terrible this series was shaping up to be, did upper management call Favreau back in to try to save the project. But by then, it was too late. All Favreau could do by then was demand that Kennedy stay the hell away from him, cut some of the unfilmed episodes, substitute a few episodes of The Mandalorian to make up the gap, and move on. This source confirms that all the stuff with The Mandalorian was added during production. It was never intended to be part of the show. Adding Cad Bane was also an afterthought, and a terrible one, given that he was introduced and killed off in no time flat. Another classic character thrown on the dung heap that is Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm. My friends, there's more to this interview that I will be presenting to you in a future video, including some details of what Morrison is pitching, allegedly, for Book of Boba Fett Season 2, as he does what he can to fix the shit show that was Season 1, but make no mistake, scrapbooking, weaselly internal Lucasfilm politics, and good old-fashioned incompetence doomed Book of Boba Fett. Given that Kennedy is rumored to be departing Lucasfilm this year, we can hope that things may improve over time, but so long as Disney treats these films and shows like video games, scrapbooking stories together out of disjointed scenes in the editing bay, Disney will continue to suck long and hard. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha